Ladies and gentlemen, there are just 5 games to go in the remainder of the 2023 NRL season because you guessed it, it is time to predict the semi-finals. It's our finals week 2 tips. It is do or die in every single game from here on out. We have less than a full round of NRL to go. How crazy is that? How has time just flown by this season? It was a longer season, and at one point I thought, wow, this season's taken forever. And just like that, blink and you miss it, we're already at the semi-finals. But ladies and gentlemen, as always, smash that like button if you enjoy the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This is your home of Australian sport. And drop a comment down below. Who do you have making it through to the preliminary finals? And let's get straight into the first game. Despite the Penrith Panthers' recent dynasty, you would consider these two teams the most powerful dynasties, the most successful clubs of the NRL era. It's the Melbourne Storm. They're hosting the Sydney Roosters. The Sydney Roosters, massive outsiders, so many injuries. And let's be fair income here. If the Cronulla Sharks knew how to win a game of finals football, then it'd be the Melbourne Storm versus the Cronulla Sharks. But both teams have so much to play for. For the Sydney Roosters, it's going to be hard to see them getting up once again. They've essentially had to play 2 grand finals in a row. And you think if they're going to have any chance, considering their huge injury toll, they're probably going to have to play a third one. The Melbourne Storm, they were embarrassed by the Brisbane Broncos last week. So much for that 14 in a row. Now it feels like the Brisbane Broncos have the wood over the Melbourne Storm. I can't remember the Melbourne Storm having that bad of a performance in a finals game. I know round 1 last year when they got knocked out by the Canberra Raiders was pretty disappointing, but that game against the Brisbane Broncos was so one-sided. Harry Grant really struggled, Cameron Munster did nothing, and Jerome Hughes went missing. They were played off the park by the Brisbane Broncos, and their forward pack, outside of Nelson's first stint, really failed to deliver. But if any team loves a bounce back, it is the Melbourne Storm, and it's hard to see them dropping another game. They're definitely going to be back to their best. There's no doubt about that. Craig Bellamy, there's no doubt he's going to have to make some changes. Young's going to appear. I feel like he has to be dropped for Justin Olam. I get it. Craig Bellamy knows more than about me, about rugby league, than this ranger will ever know. But really, you're going to drop Justin Olam for young Tonamapea in a finals game, in a do-or-die clutch after the way he played last week. Not to give it to young Tonamapea, but this game is going to be insane. You got Brandon Smith. He's coming against his old crew. The Melbourne Storm finished top 4. The Sydney Roosters, they were the most disappointing team of the season a few weeks ago. And now all of a sudden, Brandon Smith has a chance to knock off his former club. That is how crazy this game is. And the Sydney Roosters, it just proves that while these early season slumps are costing them, because I still don't think they're going to make the grand final, but we are going to live in a different world this week, and we'll talk about the negatives next week. They have a chance to go to the preliminary final, and if they are to go to the preliminary final, what a storyline. The Sydney Roosters, the team that could stop the Penrith Panthers 3-peat, the club that couldn't do it themselves, who really their season ended. I know it ended to the Canberra Raiders in round 2, but they lost to the Penrith Panthers in week 1 of the 2020 finals when they were going for a 3-peat. They have a chance to do it back to the Penrith Panthers. In the Melbourne Storm, well, the last time the Penrith Panthers lost a finals game, well, they lost 2021 week 1. But the last game they lost, but they didn't win the premiership, and it was a do or die, was the Melbourne Storm, the 2020 grand final. So either way, the Penrith Panthers are going to have to continue, and the storyline is going to be insane depending on who wins in this game, really. But as for my tip, look, the Sydney Roosters still have enough in the cattle. James Tedesco, Luke Keary, Sam Walker, Brandon Smith, Victor Radley, all these guys have improved considerably in the last month. But like I've said, they've had to play 2 grand finals. This will probably end up being a third. And if any coach knows how he's going to get their team to bounce back, it is Craig Bellamy. So I do want the Sydney Roosters to win because, you know, Melbourne, screw you. But I am going to tip the Melbourne Storm to get the job done here. Now, I don't think it'll be 13 plus. Honestly, I just don't think the Melbourne Storm have it in them to win 13 plus. Their forward pack is still very light. Even with all their injuries, I still give the Roosters a huge chance because I feel like in the middle they're going to be more dominant. If I'm Melbourne, I'm starting Nelson aside for Solomona. I know he can be more productive when he comes off the bench, but it can't be like that Brisbane game where the game's gone once Nelson comes onto the field. So I'd be starting Nelson. He's the best forward, and if they're going to compete with the likes of Lindsay Collins, Victor Radley, he's got to start. Seal Wong has been terrific as well. So I give that forward pack of the Roosters any chance. And with Tedesco, Keary, Walker playing off the back of them as poor as they've been for most of this year, the past month has proven that they are still a champion footy side. So I give the Roosters every chance, but with Munster, Hughesy, Harry Grant, they played probably the worst game I've ever seen them play as a spine collectively last week. So I feel like Craig Bellamy's getting up the boys to bounce back. They've got the longer turnaround as well. The Roosters, they're going to be running on fumes considering the effort they put in last week. So while I don't still see it being 13 plus, I see a 1 to 2 try win for the Melbourne Storm. And in the second game, the New Zealand Warriors, they are at home and you can shove Eden Park up your A. They're at Go Media Stadium in Auckland. The light show is going to be insane. They're taking on the Newcastle Knights. And how good is the final shaped up? We're getting the Broncos, Warriors, or Knights in the grand final. The three sides who, besides the Broncos, who a lot of people have in their rate, who would have thought that one of these three teams are guaranteed to be making the grand final? More likely Brisbane, but let's not sour on that just yet. While on the other side, we're only going to see either Penrith, Melbourne, or the Roosters making the grand final. Not two of them, just the one. So how good, we're getting something different in this final series. And the way it's shaping up, it's kind of good in that way I just explained it. But it's also sad because these has been everyone's second and third favourite teams, depending on how you think of it. Either way, we're going to be happy with who wins. Sean Johnson, whether he plays or not, is the big question mark. The Newcastle Knights might be without Hastings, but honestly, the way Clune's played and the way that Tyson Gamble has played, holy heckers, who knew that Tyson Gamble was one of the best 5'8" in the competition when push came to shove. He got the charge down over Fogarty and he steered that team to a win. I know without Kalen Ponga, they probably lose, and they lose big. But Tyson Campbell's resurgence as a footy player, you know, everyone thought he was a fringy, a utility that you brought on when you lost a half. Jack Cogger, have fun playing in the reserve grade for the Newcastle Knights. And honestly, maybe you go Cogger 7, Gamble 6. That is how good Tyson Gamble is playing. But can he do it over in New Zealand? Who would have thought that the Friday 6 p.m. poo slinger from the first round was going to end up being the semi-final? And here we go again. Sean Johnson, if he plays, I've got a lock in for the New Zealand Warriors. Unfortunately, like the Sydney Roosters, the Newcastle Knights basically had to play their grand final last week to just barely get a win over the Canberra Raiders. I know the New Zealand Warriors got pumped, but like I said a million times in the review, it's like judging Manly without Turbo, Roosters without Teddy, Melbourne without Munster. You know, he's their superstar. He's been the best player in the competition throughout the regular season, for Christ's sake. So I am going to tip the New Zealand Warriors. The short turnaround as well. They've got to have to fly to New Zealand, the Newcastle Knights. But they've won 10 in a row. I'm certainly not ruling them out. I know a lot of people are going to be the opposite, but I'd probably give the Roosters a better chance of knocking off Melbourne, even with their injuries, than Newcastle are of beating the Warriors. If the Warriors lose this, I know it's been an incredible season and it can't be a failure season. It's going to be at least an A because of what they've done this year, but it will be disappointing. As a Manly fan after 2021, I can tell you that not every team continues to build. Look at the Cowboys. Once you get in these positions, you have to take them because who knows what happens next year. Touching wood, SJ goes back to the form that we thought he was going to show this year that he's shown the past couple of years. Maybe Chance goes back. Maybe RTS doesn't work out. You know, I'm not saying it will. I had to put a banner on. I think the Warriors are definitely on the up, and I think Andrew Webster and this core of players is probably going to be the one that breaks this premiership drought for the New Zealand Warriors. But you've got to take your opportunities, and if they do go in straight sets, especially the way this crowd's going to be reacting on Saturday, is going to be absolutely insane. So up the wires. I hope they get the win here. But if the Newcastle Knights get the win, then I won't be too disappointed. So I am going to take the New Zealand Warriors. I'm going to take them just close, probably 6 points, 7 points, maybe an SJ field goal after a converted try seals the deal. But again, the narrative, we're either going to get the Warriors versus the Broncos. We're going to get Ponga versus Reece Walsh if the Newcastle Knights make it through. So the storylines, they're going to be aplenty. The boys on Fox League, the boys on Bloke in the Bar, the boys on all your favourite footy shows. I wasn't going to say shit, I promise. All right, this is just the best place to be, baby. Apologies for the testy pop, but there are my tips for finals week 2 for the semis. I'm taking Melbourne Storm 12-point win over the Sydney Roosters, and I'm taking the New Zealand Warriors a 6 to 8-point win over the Newcastle Knights. Sorry for being boring, sorry for picking favourites, but if the Roosters and Knights win, then I won't be too discouraged because unfortunately, I think the grand final's locked in. But anything can happen in rugby league. I saw Sean Strickland beat Israel Adesanya, so anything can happen in the world of sport. Ladies and gentlemen, drop your finals week 2. Drop your semis tips down below in that comment section. Smash that like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the best content here on the tubes. And yeah, I'll see you boys and girls in the next one.